You did already. You're still going there. All right. You kept trying to stand up all the time. Now you just want to sit down. I was looking for examples of ladies to put up on the screen this morning, so I just typed in lady into the Google, and I come up with the most famous lady of all, I'm sure. This lady is Lady Wisdom. For those of you who don't know, this is Lady Gaga, who does strange and wonderful things. I looked further to see what other ladies I could find, and I came up with this lady. But, you know, she had bad company. I mean, Lady and the what? Tramp? Yeah. You know, so Kathy's going to go get some more chocolates out there. The men would take them if we did. Lady Antebellum, anybody? Any fans? Michael's up here going, yeah, okay, that's finally there, something I know. You know, when we look for ladies, when we look for Lady Wisdom is often hard to... She got one. She's flaunting it at me. Boy, my stomach is growling. I better speak faster. When we think of wisdom, and when we think of maybe moms and ladies, you know, we oftentimes don't give them the recognition that they want. This is one of the most famous paintings in the world. You all recognize it just by the hands in this painting. This is painted on the ceiling at the Sistine Chapel. It is God creating Adam, and they're about to touch fingers and create life. Do you stop and look at wisdom in this picture? Probably not. If you look at that's hard to see. If you look up at the close-up of God touching Adam's finger, you will see wisdom right there. That's Lady Wisdom. She is at God's left hand while his right hand is creating Adam. In the book of Proverbs, this is probably very accurate because we will see Lady Wisdom in some ways taking the place of God, speaking as God, being God in our lives. And we really need to pay attention to this wonderful lady. This is our first encounter with this woman, and we will see her all through the book. And I believe that she is also the one that we look to in Psalm 31, where we talk about the perfect woman. I think wisdom is that perfect woman. She makes it known that wisdom can come to all, especially if your name is Lucy. Lucy speaks, and you'd better listen, John. When wisdom speaks, we all should listen. Those who have ears to hear will receive what wisdom has to say. She is a personification. As this bulldog is a personification of a human being, or maybe the human being is a personification of a bulldog. I'm not quite sure in that picture. But wisdom is a concept, an attribute, something or other, and the book of Proverbs makes her into a lady of uncommon beauty. Wisdom may speak on her own authority, but she tells us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So while in some ways she speaks as God, in other ways she points to God. And we need to watch that. The main emphasis in this part of this first chapter is that the fate is the fate of those who reject wisdom. Verse 7 in chapter 1 says that fools despise wisdom. Well, wisdom shows up on the scene and says what happens to fools who despise what she has to tell us. The first thing is very unusual here. And this first time we meet her is very unusual because we see a woman shouting in public. In that day and age, 3,000 years ago, women wouldn't hardly have been seen in public, let alone speak in public, let alone shouting in public, wanting everybody to hear. And this would have been amazing to them and would have stopped everybody short who first read the book of Proverbs. She speaks with authority, and that's something else women didn't do in that day. She speaks with authority, and she sets herself up over and against her audience. If the street was noisy, wisdom's going to be heard above them. She is going to make her wisdom known to everyone so that they have a choice, so that they're not ignorant. No matter how many conflicting voices are out there, she is going to be heard. But does anyone stop to listen? You know, there are going to be very few people here in this first chapter that do. So let's look at this paragraph here, starting in verse 20, as we look at wisdom's call to everyone who might listen to her voice. She calls aloud in the street to anyone who will hear. And her question, how long, is both a plea and a threat. It is a plea. How long, folks, are you going to not listen to me? How long are you going to continue to make bad choices? But she also says, hey, how long are you going to continue to do this? Because my patience is going to run out. God's patience is going to run out. How long are you going to do this? So it also comes across not only as a plea, but as a threat. The simple, again, we want to remind everybody, that's us, all right? We need the Lord's input. We need the Lord's wisdom, and we need to learn, and we can learn if we leave our simple ways behind. If listeners respond, wisdom promises to share her thoughts. It's a godlike phrase. It's a divine phrase. God will share his wisdom with us if we ask. And wisdom will share her thoughts with us if we listen to her and respond. Her teaching is so out of step with the bustle of business as usual that her words will often go unheard in this world and through many ages, both before us and to follow. And so we come to her rejection, and she is rejected by the people there in the marketplace. Wisdom is called, but her words fall on deaf ears. Their batteries have run out. They put their fingers in their ears. It's not a matter that they can't hear. It's a matter of that they don't want to hear. And we need to ask ourselves, when we make decisions, are we willing to listen to what wisdom has to say? The results are disaster and calamity, and this brings laughter to wisdom. It's always interesting when God laughs at disaster or when Christians laugh at the punishment of the wicked. And here wisdom is laughing at the punishment of the wicked. And we get really uneasy about that idea. How can you laugh when people are being punished, when they are getting their just deserts? It is a hard concept for us because we're sinners. You know, and we don't want to laugh at people who are being punished because we don't want to be punished. But when we get to heaven and we see God in all of his holiness, when God's holiness is vindicated, when God's justice is enacted, that will make us happy. It makes wisdom happy. It's just that we can't envision this because we are so sinful, and we can't envision a being as holy as God is holy. And so we kind of quease at that statement. But wisdom laughs when the people who don't listen to her get what they deserve. As passerbys, they mock her, and she's going to end up mocking them. This is similar to God's laughing. We're told that God laughs. We're even told that Christians laugh when sinners are punished. Yeah, you want to hear God laugh? Tell him your plans, okay? That's a good idea. Verse 27 pictures a storm of ruin overtaking the sinners, the people who are not listening to her. By the way, if you're a storm watcher, this is the wrong storm because it's backwards. Somehow the picture got flipped. If you are on the left side of the storm, you're in a good spot. The sinners are way over there on the right, getting hammered by this storm. We need to understand that when we follow God, we can be in a good spot, even when we see the storms roll in. But God is going to hammer those people who mock him and mock wisdom. When they do mock him and mock wisdom, wisdom is going to refuse to answer their call. Just as she called and was refused, well, now they're going to call when they're in trouble and when they haven't listened and when they're desperate, they're going to call, and wisdom is going to refuse to answer. If the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, the crowd shows that it wants nothing to do with God or with wisdom. And so they just mock God until they get so desperate, and then God's not listening to them anymore. God hasn't learned to recognize their voice. You know, it comes up on his caller ID, and I don't know who this person is, and he just hangs up because they haven't been talking to God and haven't listened. Wisdom stresses in these verses that this rejection is not done in ignorance, but because they have made a choice. Making a wise decision is always a choice on our part. We have the freedom, we have the ability to make good choices if we listen to the Lord.